So we are talking about the haunted house movie, Darkness Rising. This one directed by Austin Redding and stars Tara Holt as a young woman who is haunted by the tragedies of her past. And her boyfriend and her cousin decide to visit her old family home the night before it's due to get demolished. And whilst they're there to kind of like maybe put a full stop on her previous life and kind of maybe move on. However, the house won't let her, as it seems to be inhabited by some malevolent spirits who want to keep these three for nefarious means. And obviously it's a case of, can they escape the evil clutches of the malicious spirits that dwell there? So let's talk about Darkness Rising, what worked and what didn't. It's a relatively small cast. I've got to say the production value here is pretty good. It actually looks like it's a fairly well produced movie. The kind of the camera work, the lighting, all looks to a good standard. And I've got to say the directing here is fairly decent. It actually flows at a good fair pace. The shots are all well lined up, and I think it captures the mood of this kind of like menacing house quite well. There are some reasonable effects here, I would say. They do quite a lot of kind of things throughout the film, and we see various kind of manifestations of different kind of spooky things happening throughout the movie. I really liked Katrina here. She played the cousin. You may know her actually from Spartacus, and she was also in the superhero show Arrow. She was pretty good as the cousin here, gave her quite a spunky performance as this kind of like bit of a rebel cousin. She's more of a supporting character. You've also got a small cameo from Ted Raimi, of course, the brother of Sam Raimi, the kind of quite famous director of the original Spider-Man trilogy movies, and among other things, and of course, Evil Dead. Although his scenes seem quite tacked on. They almost seem like they're from a different movie. I've got a feeling there might have been either reshoots just that kind of add his name, or literally taken from a different film, because they really have no real bearing on the actual story. So what didn't work for me, I got to say, initially the kind of the main two actors who played the two leads, female lead Tara Holt and Christian Gannery. Some of their line delivery was a little bit stilted for me. It wasn't so bad all the time, but there was certainly at the beginning of the film, some of the line delivery here really didn't seem very natural. It seemed very much like they were kind of reading it from a script. So I didn't think the acting, although it was, I wouldn't say it was bad, it certainly wasn't as good as Katrina Law's acting, who was the other, obviously, member of the cast here. That was the first thing. I've got to say, the second thing I would say, the story here is somewhat convoluted, and it's difficult to kind of make a lot of sense. I feel it doesn't really does a good job of explaining to the audience about what actually is happening and the kind of the relevance of things that are taking place. I mean, you can kind of get the gist, but I feel it was somewhat kind of muddled in its kind of storytelling in regards to what it's trying to say. There are certain scenes, for example, where it's giving you exposition, but you'll have a lot of things kind of going on in the background, like sound effects and music. They kind of make it so you can't quite kind of get what the gist is. So I did find it was not the best in kind of laying out the foundation of what this kind of like this mysterious spirit is. And I've got to say, this does fall into some massive cliches. Characters do things that will really bug you if you are a horror aficionado. For example, they'll see kind of paranormal things, and at the beginning they won't say anything to any of the other members of the group, because obviously they just don't, just to kind of add to the mystery. I remember seeing the trailer for this film, and it got a lot of shit because the convenience that it has for keeping these guys in the house. There's this dog outside that kind of is keeping them from escaping, and people were kind of like, what? It's a stupid idea for having this kind of reason why they can't leave the house. Although there is a little bit more to it than that, but nonetheless. It will frustrate you. Decisions that people make in this film do seem quite illogical and really just are there to kind of keep the script moving forward. And I've got to say, even though I quite like some of the effects here, I didn't feel it was particularly scary in any sense. You never really got the kind of sense of creepiness. Although I feel the kind of, it looked quite well produced, it just didn't really build up much tension and didn't really kind of create an atmosphere of dread, which I feel like a great horror film can do. Even if it's a particularly low budget one, I still think that it's able to do that. This one really doesn't. There was one quite good scene involving a bathtub, and there are a couple of gore shots here, but overall it was kind of just okay, mediocre, and therefore I will give this movie a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me comments and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.